person, if you are a layperson looking at getting informed in the world of business, not only here in Uganda, but also in the region as East Africa, then Smart 24 TV is the channel. You can catch us live on GoTV channel 394 and DSTV channel 372 for all your latest updates. And of course, this is Financial Markets, and I am Anthony, your host. Remember, the show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange. Altex now can be found online at www.altex.com. And remember, they do offer you treasury bonds now across East Africa. Besides, of course, having their exchange traded fund on the treasury bonds in East Africa, they do have the Zabu initiative, where you can now get into trading securities or treasury bonds across East Africa with your phone. You can do this simply by dialing *292# to get enrolled in the system, and then also get to interact with other traders online. Now, the bonds you can either buy or sell. So even those who have already bought some of these instruments and you're looking at selling them on the secondary market, definitely Altex is there to help you at the best interest rates on the market that you can find nowhere. The markets open at exactly 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and close at 15 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. And of course, definitely that brings you the latest there from Altex East Africa. Now, getting into the day's data, of course, we're looking at Wednesday. Today is Thursday, of course, but we get to look at the Wednesday performances there from the different stock exchanges in Africa and get to give you your latest updates. Now, let's kick off with the Uganda Securities Exchange. Remember, we do have 18 companies currently listed on the stock exchange, and 8 of these are cross-listed, mainly from Nairobi, and the other 10 are actually domestically listed companies here in Uganda. Now, on the third day of trading, that was on the 7th of December, at the end of the day, we had just 3 companies participating in the trades there on the Uganda Stock Exchange. The day, disappointingly, did not end with any gainers, and we had disappointingly further 6 losers that were registered on the market. A quite bear market here in Uganda that, of course, is being witnessed as we close the year. Now, the bottom losers, mainly, actually all of them, were cross listings from Nairobi. You're looking at companies like Nation Media Group, Centum Investments, Equity Bank Limited, Kenya Airways, Jubilee Holdings, East African Breweries Limited, and the like. However, the top movers on the market, of course, as usual, the domestic stocks here really do well when it comes to market participation, probably because of the understanding people have of these domestically listed companies and also their presence within the country. Stanbic Bank Uganda moved the market with the 615,151 shares volume. However, at the end of the day, their stock price was not affected, maintaining it at 21.00 Ugandan shillings. MTN Uganda Limited as well had a similar story, maintaining their price at 180.00 Ugandan shillings. They traded about 16,150 shares on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Umeme Limited, which is also a very great company on the stock exchange, maintained its price at 210.00 Ugandan shillings after participating in the day's trades with a total volume of just about 990. Now, looking at the bottom losers, like I mentioned, all these were cross listings, and mentioning, of course, by the biggest loser, we had Nation Media Group, who lost at exactly 1.23% of their price on the third day of trading, closing the day with 482.40 Ugandan shillings. Nation Media Group has declined generally from above 500 shillings just a couple of months back. Looking at the months of October through the months of November, the company started declining back then in price, and just of yesterday there was a further decline of 1.23% of the company's stock price, and closing the day with a price of 482.40 Ugandan shillings. Nation Media Group wasn't alone. Centum followed suit, and Centum this time round lost 1.16% of their daily trading price and closed the day with a price of 243.01 Ugandan shillings. Equity Bank Limited lost about 1.14% of their stock price and closed the day with a price of 1,355.24 Ugandan shillings there as their closing price. Kenya Airways as well lost about 0.93%, closing the day with a price of 115.47 Ugandan shillings. Now remember that Kenya Airways as well, about 4 months ago, had a total pricing of about 120, well above that, about 121, 122. Currently, we are counting losses of over 7 shillings on that, and closing yesterday's trading was a price of 115.47 Ugandan shillings. Well, Jubilee Holdings Limited, an insurance company as well listed on the stock exchange, lost a value of 0.92% of their stock price, going back to below 6,000 to be specific, 5,954.63 Ugandan shillings per share. This is as well one of this is one of the companies that actually stood out at the beginning of the year, beginning the year with a price of above 10,000 Ugandan shillings. Now currently they're counting losses of over 4,000 on their year to date, which is one of the hugest losses on the Uganda Stock Exchange in as far as year to date performance is concerned. Now Equity East African Breweries Limited as well lost a 0.02% of their price, pushing their price below 5,000, and they closed the day with a price of 4,997.63 Ugandan shillings per share. This was as well a company that did begin the year very strongly with its price well above 5,000 and has since then lost a good amount of value on their stock price at the Uganda Stock Exchange. Let's get to look at some of the details here from some of the companies that did have movement in as far as the pricing is concerned. Nation Media Group being one of them. The company shared of 6 shillings in its trading for the day, and however didn't have any shares actually that were transacted on the stock exchange, but their stock price of course was affected negatively in the day's trading. Now the company currently still represents about 0.437% of the entire Uganda Stock Exchange equities market, and currently at exactly 91 billion Ugandan shillings market capitalization. They do represent they are the 14th most valuable stock on the Uganda Stock Exchange. When you look at their graphical performance here, the graph really shows you that in the month of July 2022, their price went as high as 700 shillings on a single day of trading. And as well, when you look at the last couple of years, their stock price has been, for example, in 2021, their stock price was above 800 shillings between the months of June in 2021 to the months of November 2021. That shows you how much the company has lost. Now today, we are looking at a price of 482. If you are to take that back 1 year ago, you're looking at the year-on-year performance, the company has almost lost 50%. That's how badly it has been for the Nation Media Group here at the Uganda Stock Exchange. However, currently they do still have a good number of shares floated on the exchange, 189 million of them, and these are bringing their market value to 91 billion currently as per their current share price of 482.4 Ugandan shillings. Centrum Investments has a similar story, much as it's a little bit better than that of Nation Media Group. The company got to list in 2011, and that was on the 10th of February within this particular year. And since then, the company has held 13th, has been held in the 13th position in terms of value, and currently representing about 162 billion Ugandan shillings on the Uganda Stock Exchange worth of market capitalization. And this represents a 0.777% representation of the 20 trillion market capitalization of the Uganda Stock Exchange. In the Wednesday trades, the company lost a 2.86 shillings on their stock price and closed the day with a 243.01 Ugandan shillings closing price, and this was a 1.16% drop. Now, generally looking at the curve for Centum, it looks a little bit worse this year than it has ever been for Centum. When you look at the month of January, the company began with a price of 444 Ugandan shillings, currently counting losses of over 30 to 40% of that stock price to close at 243.01 Ugandan shillings just as per yesterday. Looking a little bit further in 2021, the company's stock price was well above 500 shillings in 2021, between the months of July through the months of September and all the way down to November 2021. And even throughout the year 2021, it only hit below 500 in the month of May. That's the only time we had the stock of Centum go below 500 shillings. Currently, that is a lot of history that we are talking about. The company is currently valued at 243 per share, 243 Ugandan shillings rather per share, meaning it has also lost close to 50%, wiped out over 50% in their year-on-year performance. This continues to show how the COVID-19 effects, how the inflation and other factors have really beaten so hard on the stock exchange here in Uganda. And of course, a recovery plan, it should be in sight if at all we are to see some of these companies return to their former glory. The company has a very good representation of the stock exchange with over 665 million shares that are floated on the exchange and about 162 billion worth of market capitalization. Their recent performance has been highlighted by particular losses and slowed trading on the stock exchange. However, we have to mention this, and this is a very strong one. They are still, amongst the cross listings, they are the most active. And we are talking companies like KCB, you're talking companies like East African Breweries, you're talking companies like, when you look at equity, this company, Centum, still is on top of its game amongst the cross-listed companies. Unfortunately, it even does outperform some of the domestically listed companies like, and I want to be very specific here, British American Tobacco. This year, we barely had any activity on the company. And so companies like Centum still do perform better than companies like British American Tobacco, regardless of the fact that they're domestically listed and are present here in Uganda. Now, when you look at their year-to-date performance, to be specific, they have lost 45% from the mentioned 444 to the current 243. And this ranks them the 14th in terms of year-to-date performance out of 18 companies that are listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. They last had trading on the 11th of August and this is in the year 2022, after having recorded a volume of 7,800 shares on the market and closing at a price of 308.81 Ugandan shillings. They did have trading on the 8th of August, on the 19th of July, on the 20th of June. So a little bit of scanty participation here and there, a little bit more, much better than some of the companies. Later on, I'm going to, of course, to tell you about a story currently making headlines on the Kenyan market about Centum's opening of a power plant that has been halted. Of course, this is one of the other problems that the company is facing, selling off some of its stake, for example, in CDN Bank to a Nigerian money lender. There's so many wars really when it comes to Centum Investments Company itself currently that they are facing. But thank God for the good administration. They are managing well so far. Now, when you look at Equity Bank Limited, really nothing much to say about the bank after having lost 1.14% and closing at 1,355 without any participation in the trading. Kenya Airways as well, similar story at this 0.93% drop that was registered on the company. Now, let's look at Stanbic Bank Uganda and see if this movement did have a little impact on the company's positioning as regards the most traded on stock. Now, Stanbic Bank currently still represents a total of about 1.07 trillion Ugandan shillings worth of market capitalization on the 20 trillion market capitalization of the Uganda Stock Exchange. The bank got listed in 2007, and since then it has been trading on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Its current price is 21 shillings per share on the Uganda Stock Exchange, and averagely they have really lost drastically when it comes to year-to-date performance. Of course, it being a small cap company, rather not small cap, but small price, because you're looking at 21 shillings really as one of the least priced stocks on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And, you know, when you have these small companies lose a little bit of value, in terms of percentage, it appears really, really big. And that's the literal meaning of it, that whatever small, when you have something small, whatever you lose is much more valuable than someone who has lost the same amount or even more, but with a bigger chunk. So that's the idea here. And so that's why Stanbic really was affected when it comes to their year-to-date performance. Since the 1st of January, they have lost a total of close to about 5 shillings, and this is a 19.2% loss on its year-to-date performance. And of course, this is from 26.0 shillings to 21.0 Ugandan shillings. Yesterday, they did have a trading of about 615,151 shares on the market, closing the day with a turnover of 12.9 million shares there on the market. However, they have maintained their spot as the #1 most traded on stock, meaning it's still the favorite stock of many Ugandans and other foreign investors on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Via volume, they have outperformed all the other companies. And in the last 3 months, they have had a total of 62.5 million shares that have been traded on the counter. Now, when these you add up the value of these shares, they are valued at exactly 1.31 billion Ugandan shillings on the stock exchange, which is a little bit smaller. And this is where Wumeme really beats Stanbic Bank via turnover as the company with the biggest turnover, of course, because of the higher price margin that they do have. The stock at Wumeme costs 10 times that of Stanbic Bank. But nevertheless, the company still holds the #1 spot when it comes to the biggest traders on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And that's Stanbic Bank Uganda for you. We did have MTN and Wumeme, but our time is fast spent. spent. And we're going to take a quick breather. When we return, we get to look at Umeme stock and a little bit of MTN, and as well get to look at the summary of the trading of the total number of shares that were traded yesterday, and get to cross over to other markets like in Nairobi and as well as other African stock exchanges. Remember, we do have stories as well for you on Centum's wars there in Kenya, and we see what's happening to Centum currently. My name is Anthony, and you're watching Smart 24 TV. This is Financial Markets. Stay with us. We'll return shortly.
Smart 24, driving business. Smart 24, driving business.
Mbuto, the taste of Uganda in a new international park.
Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for staying tuned. You can catch the conversation on Twitter. Hashtag is Financial Markets, and the handle is at Smart24TV for any feedback that you may have. What experience are you having in the bear market? Of course, we want to look at these statistics. We want to predict. We want to make the best of our money. And of course, as we enter the new year, make new year resolutions that will help us to improve our investment portfolios, diversify them, and try to make something out of the next new year. So if you have any comments on how you're spending your money and how you're investing in this bear market and how you are actually going to start the year 2023, hit us up right now on our Twitter and get to give us some of those concerns. You can also visit our YouTube live stream in the comment section, and you can give us your opinions on what you think about the current trends on the stock markets. But we will continue, of course, generally getting to give you this information, and we are powered by Altex, proudly powered by Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange. This stock exchange is licensed by the Capital Markets Authority of Uganda to be able to give you different financial instruments that you can invest in. Now with their Zabu initiative, you can dial simply *292# and straight away you will unlock the door into the treasury bond markets of East Africa. We're talking about treasury bonds in Uganda, treasury bonds in Kenya and in Tanzania. And it doesn't matter which of these three countries you are in currently, you can do this by yourself. Now they do have the best interest rates on the secondary market, but they also do offer you exchange traded funds on the best treasury bonds across East Africa. Their market opens at 15 minutes past 8 a.m. and closes at exactly 15 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Check them out at www.altexeastafrica for more. Now we've looked at mostly the highlights from the Uganda Stock Exchange, looking at the fact that we did not have any gainers on the market in the Wednesday trading, and as well we did not have any we did not have any of the local companies or domestically listed companies appreciate or lose value on the market. One of the other big movers was MTN Uganda, and of course MTN Uganda just of yesterday but won. It made a whole year on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Congratulations there to our friends there at MTN Uganda. MTN really brought a very fresh touch on the Uganda Stock Exchange, coming in as the first electronic IPO, which is something we had actually never seen. For the very first time, we got to see people working in marketplaces buy shares. We got to see students buy shares. We got to see people riding borders also get to buy shares because of how easy MTN really made it on their initial public offer. Of course, the provision is still there, especially for the Security Central Depository Registry, where you can be able to register yourself or via MTN by dialing simply *165 *57#, and straight away you can put in your details and an account can be opened for you. Back then in December 2021, when MTN was listing, it was even possible to buy shares on your phone, and this is something I really can't look forward to anymore, because I can't wait rather to look forward to anymore, because it is what we need: convenience, accessibility, the ease that people are looking for is in technology, and trying to simplify and make the market more and more accessible and demystify some of the myths that people had, that probably only rich people invest in stock markets. It's for only a specific group of people who are educated. Not really. That's all myths, and why MTN is very important to our exchange. It brought some of those myths to pass. And now, currently, the company still holds a total of 4.03 trillion Ugandan shillings, and that are floated of the shares that are floated on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And currently, this represents a 19.4% of the entire equities market on the Uganda Stock Exchange, making this company the second most valuable behind Equity Bank Limited, which has over 5 trillion Ugandan shillings that are worth of market capitalization on the stock exchange. Yesterday, the company did not have any change in price. The price was maintained at exactly 180.00 Ugandan shillings. A total volume of 16,150 shares was traded still on the Uganda Stock Exchange. And currently their gross turnover is representing about 2.91 million Ugandan shillings on the market. They have 22.4 billion shares currently that are possessed by different investors on the market, bringing their market capitalization to the 4.03 trillion mark. Now, MTN began the year with a little bit more value at exactly 194.99 Ugandan shillings, and currently at their 180.00 Ugandan shillings, they are counting losses of 7.69% in terms of their year-to-date performance. This ranks the company in the 6th position in terms of year-to-date currently, which is a little bit better, but not where we would want MTN to be, at least currently. MTN also started with its initial public offer at 200 shillings. That price has not been reached yet in the secondary market. Remember, on the stock exchange, we do have two markets, just for your own information. We do have the primary market or the initial public offer. This is when a company is coming to the exchange for the very, very first time and is getting listed on the exchange for the very first time. The IPO, or the primary market, only lasts a specific period of time, probably 1 month or less. And this period is when people buy shares into the company at a specific price for the first time. And of course, now people are buying shares of the company directly from the company to the shareholders or the investors. Now, when this initial public offer, I personally call it the grace period, is over, now the battle begins, because now we get into the secondary market activity where it's no longer about just buying shares off of MTN, but now it's competition amongst the investors that already bought shares in the company and the public, which is the people who don't have shares yet but are interested in the company. And so that transaction, of course, there is bargaining power. There are factors, of course, people consider, and you see the price going up and coming down. And this is why we wake up every morning to check the stock markets, because the stock price is dependent on what people feel. If people feel MTN is not worth 180 shillings, they'll take it down, because they'll say, okay, I'm selling at 175. And of course, if it's within the rules of the Capital Markets Authority, you have that deal. And when that deal is the last of the trading day, we will have the closing price of that stock as 175. And this is exactly why the secondary market is quite brutal. But now, when you look at MTN, since they listed at 200 shillings on their initial public offer, they haven't hit that mark yet. And the moment they got into the secondary market, the stock price began to slide. And this was from 194 in the beginning of the month, in January. In Feb, it went down to 180, and then further to 170. Further down in March, at the beginning of March, they even hit 160.0. And then currently, they went back, of course, to an average of about between 180 and 190, and of course, fluctuating in between. But that shows you how brutal really the stock market can be at times. But still, the company has put up good activity from the Capital Markets Authority point of view, and is counted among the companies that have been traded on most this year. Just in the last 3 months, they are the third most traded on stock, from the 8th of September to the 7th of December. And MTN within this period has had about 8.11 million shares being traded on, valued at currently about 1.49 billion Ugandan shillings over the period. They do have averages of about 128,701 traded shares per trading session, and a volume high of just about 1.44 million shares that was achieved on the 16th of September 2022. And that is MTN stock for you. There was a story, of course, running in the papers recently. You know, under currently the UCC Act that was amended in 2020, all national telecommunications companies or telecommunications companies in Uganda are supposed to list at least 20% of their stake on the Uganda Stock Exchange. It's a rule under the new act. And it's not a new act, but under the amendment of 2020. So when Airtel, of course, had, of course, to list this year, and I think by around this time we would have Airtel listing, but unfortunately UCC actually put up a notice and said Airtel will not be listing this year. Why? Because of several issues that are in the market that are very, very evident, and the slow market participation. They feel like there might be an under participation in the initial public offer, which will definitely affect the stock price of this company on the secondary market, which is not a very good thing. So Airtel requested for a postponement of at least one more year so they can see the market improve and, of course, recover from the COVID-19 pandemic shocks and other global financial shocks that are currently bombarding the stock market here in Uganda. So for those of you who have been waiting for that initial public offer, you can wait a little bit longer, at least for one more year, for Airtel Uganda to get listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, regarding the summary, as we leave the Uganda Stock Exchange, we had about 16,033,071 shares, 71 Ugandan shillings that were traded on the market. Compared with the previous day, there was a 66% improvement in the volume and about 64% decline in the turnover. The current market capitalization of the Uganda Stock Exchange currently is also 20.8 trillion Ugandan shillings. The result, of course, of the decline in the stock prices of mainly the cross listings definitely got an impact on the All Share Index, which is the benchmark index. It dropped by 7.2% and closed the day with a 1,201 points mark, representing a one-week loss of 1.3% and a four-week loss of 1.18%, and an overall year-to-date loss of 15%. The local company index, of course, was maintained at 268.57 points on the market there at the Uganda Stock Exchange. That's it from the Uganda Stock Exchange. You can trade on the Uganda Stock Exchange if you have an SCD account or a Securities Central Depository account, and this is got, of course, by going to online at www.use.easyportal.com, and you open this account. You can also be able to approach any of the 5 licensed stockbrokers for your latest updates, and they can trade on your behalf. Under the rules and regulations of the Capital Markets Authority Act, you cannot trade on the Uganda Stock Exchange unless you have gone through a stockbroker. So you should take note of that. Let's cross over to Nairobi very quickly here and get to see what really transpired on the Nairobi Stock Exchange at the country, of course, that is currently leading in terms of trading on the financial markets. Now, in average, we had about 48 companies on the Nairobi Stock Exchange participating in the trading out of the 65. Of course, this is an improvement, generally speaking, from the beginning of this week, where we had a sluggish beginning of the week at about between 40 and then 41 and then 42 companies participating in the trades. On Wednesday, we actually had a 48 figure on the participants list. Now, the day ended with 18 gainers and a balanced 18 losers. It was a 50-50 for the gainers and the losers on the market. Crown Paints of Kenya led the gainers at an 8.57% share price appreciation, closing at 38.0 Kenyan shillings per share, followed by East African Portland Cement Company at a 6.4% gain. The home developer here called Home Africa also gained about 6.06% on their stock price, and the HF Group also gained about 4.89% on their stock price on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Now, on the losing side, we did have Flame Tree Group Holdings at exactly a 7.14% decline in price, closing the day with a 1.404 Kenyan shillings stock price on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. And the Nairobi Business Ventures, of course, Flame Tree Group Holdings was the worst performance for the day. And in Nairobi Business Ventures as well, declined at a 6.94%. The CIC Insurance Group also declined at a 4.44%, and Britam Holdings at a 3.79% decline as well on the stock exchange. Safaricom, the big boy as well, still recorded the biggest volume on the market at exactly 3.6 million recorded shares for the day, and KCB followed at a 1.77 million shares volume, CIC Insurance at a 1.17 million, and Kabaseed Investments at a 489,200 shares. Regarding the performance of the benchmark index, the Nairobi Securities Exchange Market Index, all-share index, moved up, of course, due to better gainings and more than the losings on the stock prices for the big stocks, at exactly a 0.89 points movement upwards, closing at 26.08 points on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. A one-week loss currently is still being registered on the Nairobi Stock Exchange all-share index, currently at 0.32%. When you look at the NSE20 and the NSE25, which track the top 20 and the top 25 companies on the Nairobi Stock Exchange via capitalization, they did as well have a good time, with the NSE20 appreciating 0.08% and the NSE25 at a 0.63% share price appreciation. That's, ladies and gentlemen, it from the Nairobi Stock Exchange. It was a quite a good market there, pretty much better than most of the other stocks across Africa. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange in particular had a loss of 66 points on its all-share index. And then when you look at Nigeria Stock Exchange, it had a 59.8 gain on the index there. And as well, when you look at Johannesburg Stock Exchange, it lost 790 points on its index, on the all-share index, the J203. And so that's kind of what really transpired on the African markets here at the African Stock Exchange. Now, as I promised, of course, we have, of course, some stories a little bit here, getting to look at some of the big headlines on the financial markets, especially on the listed companies on the stock exchanges here. Now, Rwanda's Bank of Kigali income has risen, as per the reports for their financial year 2022, by about 18.4% to $41.8 million US. The Bank of Kigali PLC is listed on the Nairobi Stock Exchange as BK Group. That's the short form there for the company. Now, the local company's assets reported an income of about 41.8 million US dollars, which is about 43.5 Rwandan francs, reflecting an increase of 18.4% on their year-on-year. largely driven by the ongoing recovery of key sectors in the Rwandan economy. In particular, Rwanda's hospitality and service sectors have recorded a quite strong rebound this year due to the hosting of the key global events, including the Commonwealth Heads of State meeting earlier on this year in June, and most recently the Global Systems for Mobile Communication Association Mobile World Congress, which attracted more than 5,000 delegates. Now, releasing its third quarter performance earnings here on Wednesday, the bank's senior management said it had sustained an improvement. Sustained an improvement in the asset quality, despite the current turbulent macroeconomic environment currently. And that's a story there from Bank of Kigali. You can follow more on this story at our website at www.smart24tv.com. Well, our time is fast spent, and unfortunately we have to end it here. Remember to catch us live every morning at 10 a.m. For your latest updates from the stock markets, especially here in Africa and in the region, particularly here in East Africa. We will definitely get you informed of what's happening. My name is Anthony Sebale, and I'll catch you next time, same place and same time. Bye for now.